DM everybody. Hello. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, please. All right. I hope you can. Can you hear me? Hello. GM everybody.
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Okay, awesome. How about everybody on the space? Okay, perfect. I want to make sure that we are running cool. All right, good. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of If You Know, You Know. I'm super excited to be here. I am your host, Belle. I am the co founder of Mini Wells and NFT Girl, and your lovely host for the If You Know, You Know show. Each week, I'm joined by superstars in my eyes, people that are truly shaping the future of Web3, NFTs, Ordinals, absolutely everything. And really, from the perspectives of creators who are moving the needle forward, is the way that I like to say it. Every week, we have this streaming live on X. You can also find us on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter Spaces. Anything that, floats your boat is where you will find us. 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday. I was about to say Tuesday, every Wednesday afternoon. And I am super excited today to introduce Donnie from Famojis. Donnie and I met a couple of weeks ago in Mexico City, out of all places, right? Just as I know, man, it was a whirlwind of an experience of like hopping around here and hopping around there. Donnie, I had the pleasure of moderating a panel of Bitcoin, art on Bitcoin. And Donnie was there. And Donnie was one of the only English speakers on the panel. And I
Sorry.
I say that because freaking kudos to you, Donnie. Like, I want you to introduce yourself, but I wanna say from a personal perspective, number one, I was really impressed that I'm always really impressed when people step outside of their comfort zone to do something that's not just on like our online world, but also IRL, when we live and breathe in Web3, a lot of it is behind the screen. A lot of it is behind a PFP. A lot of it is behind like having to put your face. And not only was I impressed with the fact that you were there, but it was, it was different. It was cool that you stepped outside of your comfort zone. And to me, I automatically said, all right, I got to get to know this guy. So here we go, Donnie. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I made sure to have everyone boo me first. The first thing I did, so that I would be motivated to learn Spanish, not only because I wanted to be able to interact where I was, but because I live in a Spanish-speaking place right now. I just moved here a few months ago, so I'm new and I have an excuse not to know it, but I won't be able to have that excuse for very long. So I think that I'm the kind of person who chases discomfort and I don't want other people to be uncomfortable, but I don't feel like I'm learning or growing if I'm not uncomfortable somehow. So I like going places that like where I don't know what's going to happen, or I don't know how to interact, or I've never seen the cultural goings on, like in Mexico City or Puerto Rico, where I am right now. Those are both very different places than upstate New York in a million ways, in almost every way, really, both in terms of how governments treat those places, how people treat each other, and how people from not those places treat those places. It's just like the dynamic is so very, very different. So thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Sorry I couldn't speak the same language as everybody else. I'm glad that everyone else still spoke Spanish and didn't adapt to me, because one, it's fun to not know what they're saying and have just answer whatever I was going to say and not have it based on like what the people before me said. But two, if there was even one person out in the crowd who couldn't speak English, it would be unfair for them to not understand the other four people just because they were trying to bend to me. So,
you know what? I think that Spanglish, I just did a space the other day in which we were talking about, what we're building, et cetera. And it was all in Spanglish. It was all a little bit of English, a little bit of Spanish. And I think that one of the cool things about honestly about Web3 is that we all come from such different walks of life that so many of us speak different languages. It's part of the beauty of getting to know each other and part of the beauty of supporting each other, etc. So you did start off by making sure that everybody booed you.
I'm going to use it as fuel.
Yeah. Because you can only go up from there, right?
That's right. Yeah, and I also wanted to I think it's easy for especially white male, great English speaking people to come across as like expecting everyone else to just do whatever they're doing. And I want to make sure that I everybody knows that like I'm not here to make them do what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
trying to do what they're doing. I can't do it yet. I'm just getting there. So I wanted to make it light and obvious that I'm like trying to do that. But something I really love about this whole ecosystem, not just like NFTs or Bitcoin or any specific blockchain, but the whole thing is sort of removing an element of geography that
Mhm.
has been integral in splitting us apart and making us feel different from other people for millennia. And it's breaking down those barriers. So now that we know, even if we do speak different languages, or we look different, we dress differently, or something like that, we can all have access to one another at pretty much any time we want. So
Yeah.
it allows us to feel more uncomfortable more often and bend to other people's cultures.
Man, I love that. I love that. And I love the self-awareness that comes with that, like as a Latina, as an outspoken person in the space, it is rare when I find a white man. It is rare when I find someone in the space that's like, let me just put it out there, before we start off the conversation. When I went to Nashville, I remember I was speaking to two different artists, men that I've known for a couple of years, and one of them blew me away. I don't know. Again, it's rare. We were having this conversation. I was like, Belle, I haven't seen you in such a long time. Such a pleasure to see you. Man, hey, listen, we're in Nashville. This is amazing. Like where we are, is amazing. But I want you to know that just because I'm here in Nashville and just because I'm going to the Bitcoin conference doesn't automatically mean that I am, a Trump supporter, or that I don't, but that I believe in that. And it was like, interesting, right? Interesting that you would say that. But I don't know. I kind of appreciate a person when, again, they're willing to be like, hey, I know what I have. I know what I don't have. I know what,
I don't know anything, and I think that's one of the first things we did. You sent me a
yeah,
Telegram message or something like
yeah,
that, and you're like, "Can you give me a bio?"
yeah,
Because I was going to be on the panel, and you got to know
mhm,
like at least something about me. And I sent back
yeah.
this thing that to me didn't sound absurd. I didn't know what to write, but I wrote like, I was a classical pianist, hit my head on the ground, forgot my whole life, don't know anything about anything, bartended for 25 years, and now I make art and mess around on Bitcoin. And you were like,
What?
is this a troll? And I didn't even know how to respond to that because I was like, is it? I really don't even know. So I think a lot of like, it can look like I've, I don't know. I just don't want to take any credit for being like a white guy who tries not to be a white guy or something, because like, I don't frankly know I don't know what I look like until I see myself on a camera.
Yeah.
And like, I'm aware of the details. I'm aware that I'm white. I'm aware I'm 6 feet tall. Like I know the data points, but I don't think it takes as much effort for me to want to be outside my comfort zone as it does for other people, or it might for other people, because that's where I live. Every day that I wake up is like, it's like the first moment that I've ever been alive. So I'm really experiencing everything for the first time. And I don't really have to go far out of my way to be this way. It's just kind of the only way I can be. So
I,
I don't want to look like a martyr or like I'm some kind of
yeah, no,
better
that's your
person.
life. That's your
Just
life.
can't.
I am
Yeah.
fascinated by that. Yeah. First of all, I literally so we were in a group chat when I said, everybody give me your two sentences of who you are. And
Sure.
you did this. And I'm like,
You DM me separately.
DM you separately.
Give me the opportunity to come clean.
Yes, I DM'd you separately. And I was like, Donnie, I mean, look, man, I'm jaded now. I'm freaking jaded now in Web3 to where,
Yeah.
people typically do not give me sincerity. I mean, it just is what it is, especially when you're about to step on a panel and you're about to be, something public. I do not expect something as deep as what you said. And I immediately thought, this isn't normal. Like, let me just make sure.
I think with the anonymity that we get for like, so we get to be on the internet, right? And
Yeah.
every time you interact with someone for the first time, they have the opportunity to either be completely honest all the time for the rest of the time you know them, or they have the opportunity to pretend they're honest and thereby screw that up. And I think that's where like digital identity comes into play,
Yeah.
where in order to pull that off in real life, just to like make a new Discord account, go scam someone, make a new Discord account, go scam someone, I would have to go to a local bar 300 times in a row. And then on the 301st day, forget my wallet and get a free drink or something, like not pay my tab. But I can't go back on the 302nd time and expect to do the same thing, like but without a mustache or with like a wig on or something. It's so much easier to like shed your identity and pick up a new one. But at the same time, it's really difficult to have a digital identity like your Twitter account or my Twitter account or something that people begin to trust over the course of time. It's difficult to build credit. And it's almost as if like no credit. No, this is true. No credit is worse than kind of bad credit, because at least people know how bad you are with bad credit. But with no credit, if it's a brand new account, you just have no reputation whatsoever.
Yeah.
So there is value. And it's like the things that we've found to be really important about in-person interactions, I think are becoming just as profoundly important with like Twitter and Discord accounts, where like our mutual acquaintances actually mean something when it comes to internet. Like the duration of the account setup time really becomes worth something. I don't really know where I'm going with that, and I forgot why I started talking about it, but I think it's important.
I love it. I love it. I'm gonna lean into it, but I want to actually, you know what? Before we go there, because I think that is like the topic of the day. But you said something, and I also want to lean into that. Why is every day new to you, Donnie? Because I am freaking fascinated by that.
Yeah, me too. I've been trying to figure it out. So I hit my head on the ground snowboarding in the year 2000 or 2001. And it's somewhere around there. It was like the winter of 2001, maybe, obviously, because I was snowboarding. And I was a classical pianist before that. I started playing piano when I was 3.5 years old, and I played an hour a day minimum and competed monthly, weekly, whatever. I was in international competitions. I played with orchestras as like a 12-year-old kid. And I don't say this to fluff myself up, because I can't do it anymore. So it's not really impressive that I ever did. But I hit my head on the ground and I just couldn't play the following week. I had a recital, I don't know, in like Canada or something. I competed yearly at this thing, and I went to that competition. I just couldn't get out of the first bar of the song, apparently. And that's when my parents realized that probably there was actually brain damage. Like I was out cold for maybe 15 minutes, woke up in an emergency room, looked in the mirror and said, "Is he okay?" Because I didn't recognize myself. So that was like my first experiential memory, not that I can form them anymore, was being in an ambulance with an oxygen mask on my face. And outside of that, I can't remember. I don't remember sitting down in this chair. I don't remember being in Mexico City with you. It's as though I read a book about a guy who did it. And it's such a data dense book that it could only have come from me actually being there. I know this is really difficult to describe, but I can't form what's called deductive long-term memories, which is like if I say, "What did you eat for dinner last night?" and you go, and you look up and you're like visualizing it, right? Like you can see the pizza or the taco or whatever it is that you ate. I just have to like resort to like matrix code and go, I'm pretty sure it was a taco because I remember reading a book about that. But I can't see the taco. And if I close my eyes, I don't know what I look like. And I didn't know what you looked like until just now when I saw you on camera. But my brain was like, that's definitely the best way that I've come up with one good way to say this. You know, when you see a door that you've never seen before, like you go to a friend's house and you walk up to the door, you're not like, what is this contraption? Like, how am I supposed to operate this? Like, you just inherently know, you know where the knob is, you know what direction to turn it, you know how it locks, you know which direction it's going to swing in most of the time anyway. And you don't really have to recall any of that. You don't have to think about it. It's just there. And that's what's called procedural long-term memory. And that's all that I can form. So if you ask me anything about a door I've never seen before, I won't be able to tell you that. But the second I see the door, I can tell you almost everything about it. And that's how I recognize my mother and my ex-wife. Like, I can't fathom them, but when I see them, I'm immediately aware of everything about them. Just like when you see a door, like a refrigerator, you know how to use a refrigerator. You know what it does just upon seeing it. You're not like, where do I put my clothes in to wash them, right? You go, well, this is probably where the broccoli is. So that's how everything in my life works. I see my shirts and I'm just like, that's my shirt. But if you ask me what kind of shirts I have, I probably don't really know. I certainly couldn't tell you any physical details about them. So I don't really know how that expresses in my day-to-day life. I just figure it out bit by bit. And I try to utilize it as a skill set rather than as something detrimental. You know, like if I were if I was 1 foot tall, I would walk through the grocery store helping people get things off the bottom shelf and then asking them jokingly if they wanted help getting something off the top shelf, because that's the kind of way that I've learned to deal with whatever it is that I have.
Yeah.
So like, I'm here, I'll help you with that. And I'll joke about not being able to help you with that, but I'm not going to let it make me bitter or strange in any like off-putting way, you know?
Yeah. That's so fascinating to me. Because I mean, I don't even know the amount of percentage, like the percentage of people that have that, right? But
Doctors don't. I mean, I've gotten I don't know, dozens of brain scans and neuropsychological evaluations, and everybody can tell me what it looks like what in the DSM-5 this should be categorized as. And sometimes it's like, what is borderline personality disorder or bipolar or ADHD or autism, and it's like a million different things, and who knows what was pre-existing and what was not. But I think that most people who undergo this kind of brain trauma where the temporal lobes just kind of like stop working, most of them just die, I would bet, or they don't think critically enough maybe about what it is they're experiencing, so or maybe they don't have the surrounding resources that I had, like supportive parents and, I don't know, girlfriends in the past who have been like really into neuropsychology, like people who have helped me figure out what's wrong with me. So maybe I'm just one of the very few lucky people who has a weird thing that nobody else has and has had enough people around him to like be self-aware about it.
I'm a huge believer that the adversities that we go through or the differences that make us give us superhuman powers to go through things and understand things and have a different paradigm and a different perspective of how to deal with things and make things better. You know what I mean? Like, I think like everybody has their life stories of all the things that have happened to them. And I like to say, that's what makes you superhuman, you know, in that case. And I can definitely see how that would be like such a different perspective of being able to appreciate things in a way that none of us are able to, down from like, you know, the things that you see every day to the things that maybe you don't. I don't know. Like I can just imagine.
Yeah, they're like the same thing, kind of, you know, like those are, you can't see something. Oh wait, I'm not even gonna be able to say that properly. I sit on the board of directors. This is my 6th year on the board of directors of the United States Bartenders Guild now, because I was, you know, in restaurants for a long time. So I've been volunteering on a pretty high level with that organization for a long time. And we had a board facilitator, a DEI consultant, come in and give us a bunch of tests. And I kept on like scoring strangely, like in a margin of error that doesn't make any sense on all the tests. And they're all like personality tests or intercultural adaptivity tests or something like that. And everybody was just like, what's going on with this one guy? And this woman, her name is Jessica, she, over the course of, I think it's been 4 or 5 years now that we've known each other, and she's been administering these tests and having side conversations with me. She was like, I get it now. I get why you're different. And it's because every time you sit down at this table, you're just catching up. You don't have any idea what's going on ever. You don't know what's been said in the last room. You're not worried about what's being said in the next room. You're the only person who's at this table with no prior knowledge of anything all the time. And I think that's the main skill set that comes with this. And that's why I work with Femojis now, the Ordinal project that I'm with, because I bring a perspective that can't be brought by someone who has the ability to remember. And because I think if you remember, you can also remember trauma.
Yeah.
And you can't forget, like, what do they say? You can't unring a bell, right?
Yeah.
I'm blessed. If I don't use that word a lot, but I guess I'm blessed with the inability to remember trauma. So I kind of have maybe a lighter disposition at this point. The only downside to this, I'm sorry if I'm getting too into the personal weeds here.
I love
it.
The
only main downside to this is it's really difficult to remain in a romantic interpersonal relationship with someone. I don't know how to say that without using all those words, but it's difficult to be in that because when we're in a fight, because like people, when you get that close to someone, you get into disagreements about like, I don't know, should the lid be fully screwed onto the toothpaste or whatever people fight about when they're in relationships, whatever dumb stuff like that. Whenever there's like an argument or some kind of uncomfortable situation, I also can't remember being in love with the person. I'm only in the fight, right? So like, I break up with people all the time because I'm like, this is clearly not going to work. This is terrible. Why would we go through this? Why would we choose to be in this?
It's not worth it. Yeah. That makes sense.
And it's got to be awful for everybody who's ever dated me for that. And I'm sure most of them had no idea that's what was going on because neither did I up until rather recently. So, it's been a ride.
Yeah. I can understand that because, you know, within couples, you fight through stupid shit and then you're like, all right, let me pull it back to why we're even together. And, you know, the good
it's always there. Yeah, you're always like, I remember loving you so much yesterday. I'll deal with this thing today. You know, and I just don't. Like, I haven't talked to my sister in 10 years because she just wasn't nice to me. So I stopped. Because I don't remember that I should. And it's not that I don't have empathy. It's quite the opposite, really. I can feel how much she doesn't want to talk to me. So I was like, there's a solution here. It's just we don't talk, right? So it looks weird, but it's not like I'm a psychopath and I don't have empathy. it's quite the opposite. If I see someone cry, it makes me feel like crying because that's all I know then is that sad. Like it puts me deeply in people's shoes when I see them experiencing something. So I don't know. I'm still trying to mitigate that whole thing and figure out where I fit in the world and like what my skill sets are good for. And this is where I am now.
You're officially one of my favorite people in Web3 for how real you are, how honest you are, the perspectives that you bring, and
Terrible liar. That's true.
We need more of you. No, honestly, I just think that maybe you haven't figured it out yet, but you will, and there will be one opportunity, whether it be professional or personal, in which it's like everything now makes sense, of the gift that you have been given. I don't know.
There's always more to learn.
There's always,
even when I do figure it out, I figure something out. But what do they call it? Dunning-Kruger syndrome or effect. When you learn a little bit about something, like you're walking down the street and you find a house, and you're like, I know everything now because I found the house. And you step inside the house and you're like, there's a lot of rooms in here. I didn't know how much I didn't know about the house. And that's kind of what I'm doing with my head. There's always another closet somewhere.
Always. So let's bring it a little bit more into Web3, into digital identity, because I think, again, to me, it's so fascinating. From a moderator perspective, when we were doing that panel, I was like, well, wait a second. How am I supposed to ask you questions if you don't really remember what you've been doing? Like, what are you going to refer to? I can ask everybody else. And I wasn't sure, clearly he knows
how deep it goes. Yeah. It's like if I read a book, like the best way I can put it is if you know the Decameron, or like one of those huge books that's like, well, how did anybody even write something this, who's going to read it? It's as though I've read a book that deep about, like, I don't know, just my morning. There's so much individual data, like data points that I collect throughout the day. They're all in a book somewhere, but it's as though I read a book about someone else's life. I just know it way more.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's mine because I shouldn't know it that much. So I'm capable of forming memories, just not the kind that normally people do.
So what has your experience specifically in the NFT scene or Ordinals Web3 ecosystem been in forming that? And I ask from a lot of different perspectives. We have a very heavy online personality. A lot of the projects have to do with your digital identity. A lot of it has to do with the PFPs that we have, the communities that we are a part of, et cetera, right? But for a person that I would assume, like you just said, I didn't know who you were until you popped on camera, and now I can associate it. What has your journey been on being able to see people by their monkey faces or their puppet faces, and only being able to gather just a couple of things of what that person is willing to share via their online personality?
Man, I could talk about that for 2 hours probably and still not be anywhere near done with it. I didn't have a PF, like a cartoon PFP for a long time. I had my normal face. It was an AI generated version, but it looked exactly like me. It was just like, you can never get a good picture. So this was like that good picture I could never take of myself. And I refused to have a PFP for a long time, or an Ordinals or otherwise NFT PFP. And I don't really know why. I think it had something to do with me not wanting to assign the way people no, I know exactly what it was. I had a DGOT PFP 2 or 3 years ago during their initial run up back on Solana, the first time they were on Solana. And no one cared about it until everyone cared about it. And then people started having visceral negative and positive reactions to it. So I would come into a Twitter space, and some people would be like, oh, great, everybody, watch out, there's a DGOT in the room. And I'm like, what? I didn't mean to do that. I didn't just make any of the decisions for the company. I happened to buy it. They kind of look like me. If you look at my profile, their nose is not super. It's like the closest thing to me that I could find in a PFP. So I got sick of hearing takes that I had not had any influence in formed about me when I entered a room. So I took off the PFP and I said, forget this. We're not playing this game anymore. And then for years I had just my normal face. I decided to have a cartoon PFP once the artist of the company that I now work with, Emojis, made one that looks like me. So it feels like I'm able to fit better into, because if you get on stage now with an IRL PFP, they also don't trust you. Everyone's like, what is this? Is this a scammer, or is it a robot? It's a bot probably. So in order to be trusted, I had to make one, but I wanted one that really looked like me. And honestly, if you look at my PFP and then see me in person, you might actually be able to recognize me from that cartoon, despite it not being at all a picture of me. I thought it was the closest thing to it. it has been easy to recognize other people through their PFPs because it's like a combination of recognizing these anthropomorphized traits, or maybe even like, yeah, I guess it's anthropomorphizing, but monkeys are similar to us. They have eyes and nose and mouth, and they're structurally similar, and they can sort of stand upright, most of them. So, like, it's not a far cry for me to recognize that as a sentient being a human. But what I do think is an added layer on top of that is when we don't get to wear clothes on the internet,
Mm.
those PFPs stand in for things like Supreme and Gucci and I don't know, Hanes. Like there's practical brands and there are outlandishly expensive brands. And within that, there are subcategories of like, do you have the rainbow skin one or the gold teeth one? And there are ways of showing how much consumer power we have when we don't really have any other way of doing that. So it's kind of like showing your face and clothes in a place
Mhm.
where you could normally do neither. So I think it actually informs us a lot about who people want to be and who they happen to be in a space where we don't get those micro expressions. Like when we met in person, very different than interacting on the internet, whether it's typing or even doing this, because you get to see like how someone stands, like how wide apart are their feet? Are their legs crossed? Or do they blink more than you think they should? Are they smiling when things are sad? Because that's like a super scary trait to have. Like it
Yeah.
tells me about a lot about it, the way that you deal with trauma if you smile when you're sad, right? So like there's so many individual things we don't get when we transfer things to the internet because we're just not at that stage in technology yet. That I think this is the closest we can get is finding consumer items that show other people what at least we want to be or think we are. Right? What do you
Yeah, no, I'm following you, and I think that it is. Yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking. Perhaps you would say. I think that it's like
what too much? Too
no,
deep?
no. I think that it is fascinating. You bring up so many good points. You know, the whole IRL versus your PFP, and the little things that you would pick up on a person. What kind of clothes they wear? Do they have
There's
jewelry?
so much.
You
There's
know,
so
there's
much
so many
data when we meet
things.
in
Right.
person.
And I went back, so I like to do my research on people that I have on the show. Creepily, I would go back like years to see.
Cool. There's a lot, I think.
There's
If
a
you
lot,
Google.
you know what I mean? There's a lot, which started our entire conversation because I was like, Donnie, that is not what I found on your profile
Yeah.
online. You
There's
know?
actually no videos of me playing piano. There's one VHS copy that my dad has, but it was before social media, so none of it made it to the internet. Like I
Yeah.
stopped playing in 2000. Facebook didn't happen until 2008.
Oh,
So a
that's
lot of that previous stuff
right.
just it's like it never happened.
It's like it never happened. Wow, wow. So I went back and there was a post that caught my attention, and it was like years ago that you said, there's something about, can't really put my finger about it, but there's something about digital identity and the trust factor and building community. I'm paraphrasing, but those were, the three words that you said. And I was like, that's true. I'd love to explore that a little bit more because um, the entire premise of what we want Web 2 or people outside of us, of our little world, to come in and really feel, that they can trust a person with a PFP is difficult. And it's a tall order to ask for, right? To have that. And so I feel like you could put, as you did, a different perspective on that. How do we make it an easier world? How do we, like, is there an answer for that? Do we, yeah, I'm really curious on your take on that.
I think I have a lot of really unpopular opinions about things like this because I don't think that biometric data is private. I think that everything is. My boss used to say this thing called the illusion of security. And what he meant by that was like, if there's a lock on the door, you are given the illusion that you are secure,
Yeah.
despite most of your house being windows that could just throw a brick through and crawl in if they really wanted to get in. Like the lock isn't really doing that much, you know? So like, how many times have I walked by a camera? I stare at my phone all day. I don't know who has access to that camera. I walk by security cameras on the street. They probably, my eyes and my face and everything's already out there. My social security
Mhm.
number is on a piece of paper that, like, if you get it wet, it's destroyed. There's
Mhm.
no other credentials on it. Anyone could take it, be me somehow. So, like, what is this illusion of security, first of all, that we're even operating within? And is it the only thing? Is that illusion the only thing actually holding everything together? Then maybe we should respect it and just be the way it is. But for some reason, I feel as though a combination of biometric data attached to it. I know there's another buzzword, a credit score of some sort, whether it's social credit. I know that social credit has a really bad rap, and I think we're already in it, but we think we're not. We like to pretend we're not.
Yeah.
So like when you go to buy a house, you get a score.
Yeah.
And it's based on your interactions that are associated with your number, your person, your financial history or whatever. It's inextricable from you. And if you destroy it, you just can't buy a house unless you have cash, right? And even then, sometimes it's difficult to do. So I think if we're to really, there's so many ins and outs. I used to work for a DID layer one blockchain, a decentralized identity layer one blockchain, like years ago, part-time, but it was still took up a lot of my thought. And I learned that it is not an easy solution because it seems really easy at first. You're just like, well, like everything we're doing in real life, let's just do it on the internet. But like, how do you even associate a wallet with a person?
Mm.
How do you make it so that they can shed that wallet when they no longer want to use it anymore? Because that's what we do in real life. Like if I go to a nightclub one night and I wear a mesh tank top and a leather strap on my head, and then the next day I go to my, I don't know, cousin's funeral or something, I'm not going to dress that way. I'm going to shed that identity and bring the appropriate one with me. And I've formed both of them. They're both rightly me. I only show parts of them when it's acceptable or appropriate to do so, right? There doesn't seem to be an elegant solution for this on the internet other than having a bunch of Discord IDs. But it seems disingenuous to do that because they're not really you, but you're different everywhere you go. So the more I think about it, the more I just come up with questions. I am willing to get a chip implanted in my head, be tracked, give everyone my eyeballs, everyone my fingerprints, and put my voice into every AI database ever, because I don't think that I'm that important. There's 9 billion of us, probably, maybe more. Who wants me, right? And if an AI machine can make me say something that you think is awful, then I don't know, come hang out with me in person and find out I'm probably not the person that the internet said I was. I have difficulty believing that there is an elegant solution to this while maintaining the perception of security that we think we have. And the big question at the end of it is that false notion of security what's holding all this together like glue? And should we even poke that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's deep.
I don't even know if what I just said made sense. I just know that I'm super confused about the entire thing. And I don't know if there is a reasonably good way to go about it. Even okay, let's say we get a social credit score from scanning our eyeballs into our government's database, or maybe like a world government database, like a singular one, right?
Yeah.
Then there's still an issuing authority giving us that credit score. We're still putting our whatever's in the, our identities in the hands of some centralized authority. There really is no way. You remember the DAO boom? Everything was a DAO like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
There's this DAO and that DAO, and everything's decentralized, everything's autonomous. It's not possible, really. We found that out. Things can start out, but they have to start out from something. This is like the problem that religion solves, and the question that Aristotle and Socrates thought of, the prime mover. What is the thing that started everything? Because nothing could be not started by something, right? So like an organization has to be started by a centralized control, and maybe it can be handed over to a decentralized control, at which point it might be more fair. But until we get to the point where like the good thing has been started, maybe Bitcoin, and then everyone takes it over and does something, just like makes, I don't know, some side chain that is run by everybody and nobody knows how to make it better or worse. And we're just always moving with it. Maybe that's where decentralized identity has to go. Maybe it has to go to Bitcoin because Bitcoin is truly actually decentralized. Kind of nothing else in the world is at the moment. Again, I could go on about this for 2 hours and none of it would be coherent. So I'm going to stop there.
I love it. I love it.
Right? Oh.
No. Usually I'm the one that gets into like deep stuff, and
I'm in the right place.
You're in the right place. You're in the right place. So first of all, a lot of the things that you said, side note, we are currently building on mini wells and we need to talk about that because super side note on that. But also, I was going to say, and you brought it to Bitcoin, the entire system of fiat and the gold ecosystem that we have in the United States, particularly. Like I speak to certain people that are older people in my circle of associates or a circle of, extended friends or whatever. And when I tell them things like, I work in the crypto industry, or do you have any Bitcoin, et cetera? And they're like, that's not safe. That's why I have my gold bars, that I go to Costco to buy and talk about, a sense of security. I don't know. I see a lot of correlation on that, right? Of like, talk about a sense of security, even though inflation continues to hurt you every single year. You still think that if you hold on to this pretty little dollar, then you're going to be fine, even though every year it continues to be less amount.
That's the argument for Bitcoin currently, anyway. Although there are many other arguments for Bitcoin, and I think things that make the hard money argument strong also make, like, the underlying strength of Bitcoin as a decentralized network is the thing that makes it a strong ledger for money. But it also makes it a strong ledger for anything else you'd want to put on it. So it has a lot of use cases, but if we're going to talk about the money one right now and the perceived security of the dollar and gold and such, a big part of why my mother doesn't care about Bitcoin. She does. She has read books about blockchain. She's read sci-fi novels about Bitcoin and about how internet currency can change the way that we incentivize various programs for, like, I don't know, global warming, yada, yada. She actually does think about this stuff a lot, but she doesn't have a self-custody wallet, because where do you put those 12 words? Who helps you get them back when you forget them? I can't name a password that I haven't forgotten and had to reset, except for the seed phrases that I'm now, like, meticulously obsessed with, because that's the kind of person I am. But it's not the kind of person everybody is. So I think one of the main barriers between accepting that Bitcoin actually solves a problem, which, by the way, digital stuff people are scared of anyway. They don't know that their money is currently digital as it is, except it's represented by paper sometimes. But they haven't been forced to, like, think through that thing yet. So it's a lot of leaps to get people to go self-custody, one, where there is no insurance. And if you lose your net worth is simply gone. You're dead. That's it. And two, they're like, I don't know, we're still even arguing about whether digital art is art or not, despite projections on walls 15 years ago or 30, 40 years ago, whenever the projector was around. Ever since the projector has existed, digital art has existed. But you could own, like, the frame, like the physical frame from which it was projected, which made it collectible somehow. And now people are having difficulty thinking that anything, whether it's money or art or books, that isn't tangible physically, that you can hold right now, is good or worth something or viable or even real. Like, whatever real means, it's not real. I don't know how to get people over that. I don't know if people will ever get over that. It might just take a full generation of people dying off and new people being born into a world where everything is digital.
Yeah.
It's an assumption to them that digital is real because everything is digital,
Yeah.
I think that we lean into the dollar because it's insured. And even if it's a risk that there's inflation, it's calculated. We know that it just keeps working because we keep winning wars and taking resources and fluffing the dollar. And we're like, the government's got it. We're good. Like, we don't have to mess around. Let's not mess around with Bitcoin because it goes down more than the dollar sometimes, So it's just, I think we're in an early phase of that where people are beginning to trust it. And we can say that the price is a direct correlation to people's trust in it. The more the price goes up, the more people trust it. And the more people trust it, the more the price goes up. And it just will begin to phase out other value systems as time goes on. It's not that it will begin to do that. It has begun to do that. It's been doing that for 10 years.
You are the CCO for Emojis, and when you said, like, a lot of people say that digital art isn't even art, immediately I think about this whole era in which people say, well, if digital art, like the one of ones, well, the special fine art on digital art, if that's not art, then absolutely collections are not art. And if it's not art, then what are we doing here? What are your thoughts on that?
PFP art specifically? Yeah. There is something really special about a 10K PFP because it's 10,000 of the same thing dressed up differently. And it's recognizable as a single brand. There are a lot of ways to express this, I think, but to go back to, like, CryptoPunks and Bored Apes specifically, they're clearly the same character, more or less. And if you like one of them, you kind of like all of them. And you can draw these. I mean, you could do something like OMB. You could do whatever it is now, 6,000 pieces or 5,500 one of ones that are loosely trait-based and kind of all recognizably similar because of maybe the eyes and the eye colors, and there's like, lines you can draw through them. But those PFP collections that are like imagine if the Bored Apes were all a different monkey. It would just be 10,000 pictures that weren't correlated at all. And it wouldn't really be able to make a brand with a bunch of people's identities behind it. I think it is specifically necessary to have those similarities, those generative 10K or 5K PFP collections, in order to build a brand that's big enough or strong enough to actually move. Like a one religious person is just a person, but a church full of them who all have similar beliefs is a power. So if you say that like the Bored Apes, like one person wearing that thing is just him wearing something. But as soon as everybody's wearing one, or there's like 350 people who are public figures wearing one, now the apes can impart power into the people wearing them, while the people wearing them impart power into it. And it's sort of like, I don't know, making any other brand like Supreme or Coca-Cola. You can't remove any one thing from either of those things and actually change it. Like you can change every single thing about Coca-Cola. You can take the coloring out of it, change the flavor, change the carbonation level, the packaging, the marketing, the plants, the CEO, every single employee. When does it stop being Coca-Cola? Like it never stops being Coca-Cola because it's like a mythological creature now. And I think 10K PFPs are our version of making a mythological creature that is separate from, but empowered by, and empowers its members.
One would look at that, and an outsider would hear what you just said and would say, okay, that's why you're in an echo. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's why you're in an echo chamber. That's why you're in a cult. Like you feed each other off of that. Right. And
true.
That's why we look at you and think that you're crazy.
Yep. And it can be art, and it like sometimes it's about the art, sometimes it's not about the art. I think most of all it's about expression, which is what art is. So I'd say that whether we think of something as artistically well made or artistically sloppy or something like that, that's up to you entirely. But some people look at it and they think something. I think I used this example not at Ordinals LATAM, but the thing before in Nashville. I did use this example. If you own a Bitcoin puppet, and I don't know how many people out there are listening to this and actually know any of the Ordinals projects, but puppets and OMBs are a pretty normal thing to, like, if you know anything about them, you've probably heard of those too. If you own a Bitcoin puppet, it looks.
Ninjas in the house. OMB.
We got what?
We got a lot of pizza ninjas.
All right, cool. Radical. Pizza ninjas. It don't fit this exactly, but they do fit a similar narrative. We'll say pizza ninjas and node monks next. But puppets are for people who think there's something sincerely wrong with the world and they've stopped caring. That's what I look at. When I see puppet, I see this thing is deranged. It doesn't care. It knows shit is going wrong. And it's just okay with it at this point. That's if you feel that way, you want to buy a puppet. You want to wear it. You want to be like, hey, everybody, I feel that way. If you want an OMB, it's because you think there's something sincerely wrong with the world. And you're not going to stop until it is righted. Because it's like a social outspeak, an economic outcry for justice, essentially. Like it's a fight, it's a war. Where puppets are like, we're just going to smoke weed and make fun of each other because this shit ain't that serious. It's like, what am I going to waste my whole life being upset about it? That's so people who buy those things, I think, jive with those core values that they feel, but don't even know how to verbalize in a lot of ways. Because I don't know how to say what my core beliefs are, but sometimes I look at something and I go, that's how I feel. Finally, someone said it for me. And I don't know if they know they're saying it. Do it. Like the people who made puppets, I don't know if they were like sitting down in a boardroom going like, maybe we can attract every user on the internet who hates everything and just thinks it's all a stupid joke. I don't think they meant to do that, but I think they did it. And Pizza Ninjas and Node Monks quite similar. Like if you like technological innovation, goofy in-person meetups, and fun, lighthearted cartoon art, you want to like portray yourself as those things. I haven't really thought this one through as much, so I don't have like such a great example about it. That's right. And if you have a node monkey, you probably like you used to have a corporate job, you love spreadsheets, and you came from the Ethereum blur trading ecosystem. You just know, you see this thing and you're like, that's an opportunity because it's a monkey. I'm familiar with that. It's pixel art, which is necessary for Bitcoin. Like there's certain things you'll see, you'll look at and you go, that's finally someone has said what I think. And they get to be a part of that.
That's incredible. That's fascinating. Yeah, I think that's right. What about Famojis?
Famojis, very fun. We started out as a collection of 100, just like the other OGs. And because like there was no you couldn't batch inscribe. Putting 10,000 things on chain early was like an absurd thing to think about. So most projects that started out early got like 100 on. And the idea back then was to make something that was like an emoji, because like, what do people relate to? What does everyone know when they see? It's that I don't have a phone on me because I tucked it somewhere I can't hear it
Yeah.
because I'm on this Twitter
Yeah.
space. But if this was my phone, it's just my case. If you hit the bottom corner of the text box, the whole thing pops up. It's like pages and pages of these like yellow faces that are our way of like portraying something we think without genderizing or ethnicizing or whatever. I don't even know what the word is for that, without polarizing it towards a specific subset of people. So you have this like no ethnicity, no gender emotion, just plain old emotion. And that's, I think, what the original goal was with Femojis, was to dress things up in a way that anyone could see what that thing was saying, of the 100 of them, and jive with it and buy it and wear it, because it's just like it. You don't have to be a color, an age, anything. You just can be a feeling, or like a jacket, or whatever it is you like about that Femoji rather. So then the name was just like FOMO emoji, like FOMO into emojis. I don't know. That's the internet culture stuff. And then Femojis 2.0 came out to expand it a little bit, because like 100 people is cool, but it's not a mythological creature. You don't get that like power. You don't get it from like 2100. We found maybe there's more coming because of that. But in order to really have a serious power behind something, there need to be tons of them, because lots of people have to be able to buy in and like go through this dynamic holding of like up price, down price, who held it, who kept their profile. Like there's a lot of story that needs to be told that takes time and depth, and you just need a lot of pieces for that. But the Femojis 2.0 collection was the first attempt at widening the collection in order to gain that mythological creature status. And it has worked to a degree. But the fun part about Femojis 2.0 is that it was one of the first recursive collections. So it took advantage of putting really high resolution traits on chain and then referencing them in very like just bytes of code over the course of those 2009 inscriptions. So it's really light. It's dynamic. The backgrounds change based on whether it's day or night where you are. You can also click them to get the backgrounds to change. Yeah, there's a lot of like fascinating firsts or near firsts or whatever. And it was also a delayed reveal, which like we inscribed an encryption key that once something was changed about that, all of the images were revealed on chain. And we did that, I don't know, just a day or two into the mint, I think, something like that, or a day or two past it. And it wasn't because we needed to not show people the art. It was just like, people have done this before. It's a fun game to not see what's going on. Let's see if we can pull this off on Bitcoin too, with these wild constrictions. So I don't know, the core values of emojis as I see them is that it's lighthearted, it's fun, it's genderless, it's raceless, and it allows you to say something without feeling like you've been pigeonholed into a pre-existing group that you are inherently a part of. You get to choose your way to sort of like a blank slate that just says whatever it is you're trying to say.
Yeah. No, I really like that. That makes a whole lot of sense, and it's very culture appropriate for the world, I think, as it is. I often talk on this show and on another show that I host for NFT Now. I often talk about like I view things from a different perspective, as we do. Going back to our life experiences as a parent, I see things that to me just make sense. I have an elementary daughter who learns things every year more and more in a very digital identity way. They have to.
That's got to be wild.
It's
watch.
crazy. It's crazy to watch. It's crazy to watch. But now it's like you learn math by logging in, picking an avatar, doing your seed phrase, literally like, picking out the images. You can either pick out the images to create a chain of a password. So think about, an apple, a truck, a monkey, a bridge, blah, 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 blah. And then that child has to identify what speaks to them and create it into a 16-letter chain. Yeah, except it's not letters, it's images that one relates to. And if you don't want to do the images, you can switch over to the normalize and put in an actual,
wild
word thing. And then from that, you learn with like, level 1, and the experience of learning is entirely gamified to where your avatar grows and learns new things. And, when you learn 2 + 2 = 4, then you are able to hop into the other island, et cetera, et cetera. So I put that up against the experience of what I currently have as, an adult in Web3. And I'm like, shit, man, I see it. Like I see it. I see how perhaps for us it's innovative. Perhaps for us it's different. It's going against the grain. It's, counterculture. It's all of these things, except for these kids, the gamified learning. Exactly. And
It's
if you
just
can just put
normal.
that on there, the gamified learning is a way of life. That is the way of life that is being taught to them in a very young way. So all of these different avatars, all of these different PFPs, when I look at it from a very different paradigm than my children do. To them, that is their digital identity. That is a person. They don't look at it as, a cartoon.
It's a representation of who they are.
It's a representation of who I am. Exactly. And I get to dress it.
We learn not to play. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's sad, but I think over the course of maybe like the Industrial Revolution leading into the 9 to 5 day desk job, like our schooling, I don't know how old you are, and I'm not going to ask you that because some people really hate that question. But back in my day, we went to school for 8 hours and we sat down.
I'm that old, Donnie.
All right, cool. Yeah, we're in the same group, right? Yeah, I didn't have a cell phone until I was like 18 or something. I had to go knock on people's door. If somebody knocks on your door now, you're like, is someone going to murder me? Yeah. Why would someone knock on my door? That's just like how you talk to people back then, right? Yeah. So it was a different way to grow up. And I'm not sure what's going on in schools now. Maybe this is the same thing. But we used to just sit and do desk work for 8 hours as a kid, right? So we're supposed to play up until maybe first grade. And then there's a little bit of play speckled throughout till 5th grade. And then there's recess from 7th through whenever the hell. And then like play just stops. And you're no longer encouraged to play as an adult. And play is exploration. That's the whole point of play. It's not being like lazy and it's not being distractible. It's what people do to figure out more things about their surroundings. So like, we can't give that up. I think that's a really positive thing. And I think a lot of people who are maybe like 70, 80, 90 years old right now would see that as like the world's going to shit. Because like back in my day, we did work. Yeah. And now they're doing play. But I think play actually uncovers a lot more things than work does. You have to balance that clearly. But play is the way of uncovering things.
100%. I come from the corporate world before I found Web3 and decided to come into here. But I come from the corporate world, and I've always been like I was the youngest person in the positions in the managerial or the C-suite executives of the business. And I remember when I was in corporate America, the talk was, this is before COVID, and then COVID of course changed everything. But even before COVID, the talk was these millennial kids just want to be able to work from home, want to not come to work on time, want to, basically work from home. And so I was in corporate America in this transition of watching people older than me, make the decisions. And I'm not a millennial, but I understand. And it's this transition that the 9 to 5 corporate America and, worldwide is going through, that is like your youth, the younger generations understand it from a very different perspective. The baby boomers generation is like, you have to work. And if you're not working a minimum of 12 hours, and you're not being productive. And if you are getting home, if you're getting home and actually have time to eat dinner and go for a walk afterwards, and you're definitely not
trying hard enough.
Yeah, that's like definitely not being productive. Yeah. But the 9 to 5 is something that is becoming more and more obsolete. Nobody wants it anymore for a lot of different reasons. And I think that COVID obviously, was the very first time that these older generations were able to experience what it looks like to still be productive and balance it with your own life or your own, you don't even have the family. It's you can be a single adult and still have time for your mental health, your physical health, all of that, right? And I think that COVID ended up being, or the pandemic ended up being the birth to a lot of what we do in Web3. And you see more and more people leaving corporate America first to say, I'm done with the 9 to 5. I want to be able to step into the gig economy. I want to be able to have my own life. I want to be able to, have online communities and still be able to log off and do what I do on a normal day. To me, as a mom that I'm seeing my child go through this, it all makes sense. Perhaps those pieces of the puzzle aren't available for me, right now because of responsibilities. But
Right.
but,
Because
but
there is work. There
yeah,
is work. You do have to do work sometimes. You can't just
yeah,
play all the time, right? Well, you
no,
could. Your life wouldn't look the way it looks, right? You
right,
get to make the decision.
right. But for somebody like her, 20 years from now, oh yeah, life is going to be much different. And her
No doubt.
identity is going to be paramount to that.
I think if ever we see an entire generation of people, which we will every time a generation of people is born and ages into a certain, I don't know, place in the zeitgeist. So boomers be like, Gen X is just crazy. And then Gen
Yeah.
X was like, these millennials are lazy. And millennials are like, the Zoomers are morons who can't, they're just reusing our styles. And then the Zoomers are like, the alphas don't make any sense when they talk. And everybody says this about the next generation. And it's
Yeah.
supposed to be that way. We're supposed to have an identity, age as a part of a population, be useful when we can be as useful as we can be on the way out, and judge everything to high hell until we're dead. Because that's like, if we didn't have that balance, if the world weren't exactly 50% or 49.9 conservative and 49.9 progressive, or what, 50-50, whatever you want to call it, if it weren't that, we would all do the same thing at the same time. And one of those times, one of those decisions we unanimously made would lead to our destruction as a race. It is so important that we have people burning fossil fuels and people who refuse to. Because at some point, we might find something out about burning fossil fuels that would have only happened by burning fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Or we may make this planet into a place that's only inhabitable by something that eats methane. Like, what if 50,000 years from now, there's a different kind of like Homo sapien that now breathes methane? And it wouldn't have happened had we not destroyed the earth for ourselves, right? There
Right.
have to be 50% people who never want to change anything and 50% of people who always want to change everything. It's always uncomfortable, but you can't grow without discomfort. I think it's important to have that. It's important that everybody thinks everyone else is crazy. We just have to learn to mitigate that and not be violent and rude about it.
Right. Yeah.
You
No,
know,
I love that.
in my opinion.
That's amazing. I really like that. I'm going to open it up to anybody, if anybody wants to hop up here. And if you're listening, I know we're live on streaming and on Spaces. Shout out to everybody that's watching us. If you are in Spaces, though, and you want to get up here and ask a question or participate in the conversation, let me see if the audio works, but I think we should be good. In the meantime, Donnie, you are a self-proclaimed Pepe Maxi.
Very much. I got a lot to say about Pepe. Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that, because I find it, it's something that was new to me. I want to say it's something that was new to me. Like I said, I come from a very corporate America, risk management of all things, boring world. And when I started learning about digital art, NFTs, Web3, Pepe, and the meme culture associated with that was something new to me, something that took me a minute to even be able to understand. My co-founders recently went to Beeple's event and loved it, and through their eyes, I've been able to understand a little bit more. And of course, having been here in the space for a minute, I understand a little bit more. But it wasn't something that was innate to me. It wasn't something that I didn't have to work at. So I want to hear your perspective. What is it about Pepe that is special? I'm gonna leave it at that.
I love this topic. I've talked at length about it. I've thought probably more than most people I've ever met, even the people who like make Pepe art. I think it's easy for us to be really good at doing things that achieve an outcome without realizing why or how that works. Like, it's easy to regurgitate. Like, I put butter on toast and salt and pepper it. I don't chemically know why my body likes that. I just know it does, so I keep doing it, right? So I think most people who are engaging in Pepe memeing and image macroing are doing it because they know it works. But I don't think a lot of people think about why it works. I think there's a distinct reason that Pepe took hold of the world. And I think it's the same reason that Helvetica is the font that's used in the New York City subway systems, and is a part of almost every major brand's branding, like the North Face, Lufthansa, Panasonic, those are all Helvetica derivatives, right? We use that font because it allows us to say anything we want to say with the letters or the italicism or the spacing without the font itself imparting emotion. Like if you imagine if I wrote, I love ice cream in Comic Sans, it would just be goofy. Nobody would take it seriously. It would be like whoever said that, I don't even trust that they know that they like ice cream, because Comic Sans is just universally known to be like the most polarizing, worst font to write anything in. You write something in Helvetica, though, if you write the word dog in Helvetica, all you think is dog. You don't think dog happy, dog sad, dog up, dog down, dog middle ground, whatever. You don't think there's no judgment associated. It's just the word dog. And that's why the New York City subway system says like Brooklyn bound. It doesn't want you to be happy about it or sad about it, scared of it, empowered by it. It just wants you to know you're going to Brooklyn, right? So think about anthropomorphizing things like monkeys. You look at a monkey and you go, I don't know about that monkey. Maybe it's a little too much like me, and I don't like humans, so that scares me. You look at a chair, you put eyeballs on the chair, you go, I don't like chairs, I prefer couches because they're softer. Bar stools especially, sorry, this is backwards. Bar stools especially, very uncomfortable. I like a bar stool with a back. If a lizard crawled in here, maybe a snake, I'd be like, oh God, they're scary. Or maybe I want to eat it or something like that. But if a frog jumped in here, I would just be like, how'd that frog get here? I don't want to eat it. I don't want to mate with it. I don't want to use it as a tool for anything. There's nothing I think about frogs. And I don't think there's anything anyone thinks about frogs because they're just kind of innocuous. They're the only item on planet Earth that I can think of that most people just don't have any thoughts about. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Frogs I think they're cool. They're interesting. I like them enough. I don't think much about them, I guess is the point.
Yeah.
So if you draw a cartoon frog and you put eyeballs on it, which they already have, so they're like sort of built like us, and then you write the word, I'm a Nazi, all you think is that frog's a Nazi. You write which is unfortunately what happened one of the early days of like inflammatory stuff that happened with Pepe, the image macros that were made, where it was like this like hyper right-wing neo-Nazi symbol for a while. But it only got that pedigree, if that's the word for it, then maybe that's too positive a word. It only got that identity instilled upon it because that's what you can do with Pepe. If you make Pepe crying, all you see as an observer is crying. And if you make Pepe going like, it's just exciting. It's like, oh my God, I can't live. This is why every Discord is full of Pepe emojis, because every time you see a Pepe doing something, all you see is the action. You don't see the Pepe. And if it was a white guy doing that action, you might be a black girl and not like that. Or you might, if it was an Asian woman doing that, you might be like, my aunt is an Asian woman and she's a bad driver. And all of a sudden, all of the things that you want this emoji to be showing, it's showing everything else instead. And I think Pepe is the only neutral platform for expression of similar human emotion that we can really leave all the other bullshit out of, because there's so much that's tied up into perception. With, like I said, it's skin color, race, animal, even as far back as a couch. People have opinions about couches. I don't know anybody who has an opinion about a frog.
Yeah. I think when I see a frog, it's kind of like, oh, hey, there's a frog.
It's a frog. Yeah. But if you see a chicken, you go, am I supposed to eat that? Is it going to hurt me can I pet it? Like, am I allowed to pet it even?
Yeah.
Like, you have all these weird thoughts about just anything you might see anywhere. Dog, you see a dog, I want to pet it. Or you go, I wish it was a cat. But if you see a Pepe, you don't think anything until it's doing something. It seems to me to be the only blank slate that we can use in an image macro, which, by the way, I did a bunch of research on this because, not research, I read a bunch because I used to run this podcast. It was only 12 episodes called Don't Say NFT. And it was the early days of Ordinals. And it was like, Ordinals are not NFTs. Also, let's play on that NFT is kind of just like a bad word. It's like a political party at this point. Everybody either loves them or hates them. I did a bunch of reading about like the origin of the word meme. What is a meme? Dawkins proposed that a meme is anything that is culturally transmitted over the course of time. So like language is a meme. Peace sign is a meme. Anything that you would know from me doing without me explaining to you what it is I'm doing, that's a meme. So we use the word meme for image macros. An image macro is just when you have a picture of something and then there's a word there. And the word's always an impact font for some reason because it's like the image macro font. Pepe has become a series of memed image macros. Again, I think simply because it's a frog person that's like the most innocuous background you could think of. In my opinion, this is me. I just make this up, so I don't know if this is true or not. It just seems reasonable to me.
How important are memes to Web3 culture?
Memes are important to humans.
Yeah.
And thereby they're important to Web3 culture. And if by that you mean image macros or like the little emojis that we use in servers, I think immensely important because we don't have, just like we were talking earlier, we don't have the complexity of interaction that we get when we're in person. Where you don't see when I'm excited about something, I take a step forward. I like to zoom in on people. Like when I'm saying something I think is important, I'm like, can you believe that? Just to like, it's like an exclamation point. But the exclamation point exists because sometimes I can't do that. So I think all these Pepes exist because sometimes there's micro expressions you mean that you can't say. And you don't want to respond every time with LMAO because you're not always laughing your ass off. Sometimes it's just kind of funny. And then you can just respond with like a stupid little Pepe that's like, I think it's immensely important to interaction on the internet.
It's funny that when you made that expression, I immediately can see the image, like I can immediately see that. Yeah. And that's something that I could have said, yeah, okay. And moved on.
And it's stuff we all understand. Like nobody has to explain it to anybody else. You see Pepe doing a thing, you understand that as that emotion. And maybe we all perceive it like a little differently, but we all get what's sort of trying to be said with that. And I think just in the same way that memes are important to humans, because otherwise we would be chimpanzees. And one of the main defining factors between that's an overstatement. Something that is different about humans and chimpanzees is that if you fill a stadium with 30,000 chimpanzees, there would be blood. They wouldn't know that they were there for a common purpose or a part of a common whole because they haven't had the time or ability or thumbs or upright behavior or occipital lobe or whatever it is to be able to understand concepts that are bigger than a tribe. Or it just wasn't important for them to do that because they're strong enough that they don't have to bother. For some reason, humans developed this thing where we can all wear a Supreme t-shirt, feel like we're on a team. Hell, we can wear a Baltimore Ravens jersey and feel like we're actually on a team. People respond to wins and losses as if they're on the team.
Yeah.
And they're wearing a jersey. They're not on the team, right? It's a superpower that humans have developed that we're still trying to figure out how to use properly, I think. But we're always in the process of it. It's the first time.
That's really cool. So are you still doing the podcast?
No, I haven't. I did that because I felt like I had a lot to explore. We had a lot to explore in the early days of Ordinals as a space, to figure out what this means for decentralization and permanence and what is a meme and what is provenance? Like, how does this solve provenance? There were a lot of questions back then. I think the space has devolved or evolved, maybe is a better, more positive way to say that, into something that's much more asset focused at the moment. And I can't think of a lot of questions I want to answer and anyone who would want to listen to it. So I like doing stuff like this where you come up with questions and I get to spew everything I've ever thought all at the same time. But coming up with questions to ask people who are maybe not passionate about answering those questions, it just got exhausting to the point where I'm like, if I'm the only one who cares about this, I have to wait for the opportunity to talk about it, not try to force it. So maybe I'll come up with another way to do that, or do a regular show after this next bull market. And I don't know, but no, I'm not running anything at the moment.
Okay. I know that you're attending a lot of events worldwide, pretty much.
It's been a crazy year.
It's been
only a couple more this year, though. Yeah, only a couple more.
Okay, cool. Where are you going next?
Bitcoin Amsterdam in October.
Yeah.
And Art Basel, I think, in December. Because Miami's so close to Puerto Rico, it'd be stupid not to go, even if it's a small thing. And Tokyo. Go to Tokyo and probably a few other Asian countries in November, but only for an OMB meetup, not for like a larger crypto thing.
Okay.
Specific item.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. What like, did you ever think that you would be traveling worldwide for?
No.
Yeah.
No, certainly not. I was a dive bar bartender and a nightclub bartender for like 10 years in Buffalo, New York. And one day I woke up and was like, I feel like I'm just living the same day every day, and nothing has changed in 10 years. And I quit my job that Saturday. I went home and I booked a flight to Tokyo for Tuesday, like 2 days later. And I stayed there for 2 weeks without really any idea of when I was going to return home. And my goal was just to get so far out of my comfort zone that I learned something new about where I really wanted to be. I needed to like hit the reset button. I think that's when I gained an immense appreciation for the perspective shift that you can get by fully immersing yourself in someone else's culture, and without being disrespectful, of course, figuring out like new rules, new ways of operating, and just see what other people do on a daily basis. I've had the bug since then, but it's exhausting traveling. So it's expensive too. And I'm a normal person, so I don't do it that often. And luckily this year, it was a job requirement to go to 2 continents a month. And it was incredible. I don't know if I'm like different than everybody else because I don't really know where I'm waking up most of the time. I'm just up and then I'm there and I have to figure out what to do. It's not exhausting to me really to travel for 18 days across 3 or 4 countries with just a carry-on. It's fun, in fact.
Wow.
And I would do it again next year, despite it being a little bit difficult to find a home in Puerto Rico or learn Spanish for that matter.
And you probably are going to have to do it a lot more next year if things go right and
Yeah.
we enter a bull market or higher than that, then your time is going to be absolutely be spent across globe trotting.
See you in Mexico City again.
See you in Mexico City, absolutely. But hopefully this time you stay longer, though.
Yeah, I would like that. I was coming off a 10-day trip before that, though, so that was my exit. I had to.
I know. All right, so I'm gonna pull up You Zapata on. All right, I think you are here. Hey, how you doing?
Hey Bill, hey Donnie, how you doing? It's been really cool to listen to you again.
I'm glad.
Yo, what's up? How's it going? I didn't recognize you by the howdy.
So You Zapata was an artist that was also showcasing with Gamma at the event that we were at in Mexico City.
The pigeon, Paloma.
Yeah. The Palometa.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Palometas. So, man, it's been really cool to hear you. Like, it's been really, every time, like, we've been talking, we have talked like 3 times only. And every time I find, like, you're a really good observer. And you are observing and you are analyzing the things that are happening at the moment. And all that that you have been talking about Pepe, about memes, about characters. So I feel like it's a really good way to look at life, to analyze things, not just letting them happen, but maybe asking a little bit about why are they happening. It's really cool to hear you. Yeah, just wanted to come up and say hello to Belle, hello to Donnie. It's been really cool to hear you today. And also to let know Donnie that since you collected my ordinal number 7, I did a raffle for the physical piece that I painted on the event in Mexico, and you won, my friend. So
get out!
Congratulations for that.
Right. Wow. That's awesome. That's the one that you were painting at the Ordinals conference.
Yes, sir. That's the same one. I made a raffle for that one because I already did the sold out. So the promise was every time I make a sold out of one of my ordinals, I'm gonna raffle the physical piece that I'll paint about that ordinal. So I made a sold out for the first one. You won this time, and I already released yesterday the second ordinal. So yeah. It's really good.
And that's why you were asking me if that was my wallet address, because you saw the piece. I won the raffle. You looked in the wallet, you saw my name, and you saw the other pieces. That's why you asked. I didn't get back to you. Yeah. Check that message. That's awesome. That was going to be my first actual piece of art in my apartment because I didn't travel with any art to Puerto Rico because I didn't want to put it in a shipping container. So this will be the first physical item here, and it is
amazing
that we're talking about this right after Pepe because I think that something that's missing from the digital art space a lot is this things that are memeable in the same way that street art is, where there are a lot of artists that make many characters. This kind of goes back to the 10K PFP thing too, honestly. But there are a lot of artists that'll draw in a style, but many different characters, and there's not a lot of continuity other than the style between it. Something I thought that was really cool about the rat and the pigeon, the way that you two other panel members or whatever cohorts, whatever we want to call it, you make the same character every time, but you make it in different ways in different places. And there's like a unique ability to strengthen whatever message it is that you're sending through that thing, because you keep repeating that same image in this like super memeable way. So something I hadn't really thought about with graffiti art is that it is the most memeable physical or digital art out there, because it's kind of like a replication of the same thing over and over again. Was that an active choice on your part to like always do this one thing and like strengthen that message?
Yeah, well, at first I wanted to have like my identity on the streets or on my art, but I felt like I needed a connection with something that people can relate to. So I feel pigeons are really part of the street art, part of the street, part of like a lot of crazy thoughts that I have, and all people have different stories about pigeons. So I felt it was perfect for me. It has like a duality that I wanted to represent through my art, and that's how Palometa was born 4 years ago, and I haven't stopped painting palometas ever since.
That's awesome.
Yusuf, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you were able to come up here and share that information that Donnie won. Holy shit, that's amazing. That's fun. Congratulations, Donnie.
Yeah, can I hear me on Twitter Spaces or not?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got it.
Yeah,
Wasn't sure if you had to like type, and I don't know. I don't know how this works.
No, you're alive. You're alive.
Technology's amazing.
Yeah. So the next time that we see you up on camera, you're going to have that right. There's a spot right behind you that it fits on that wall.
That one right there. That's where it's going.
There you go. That's exactly where it's going. All right, Yusuf, thank you for coming up here. La próxima vez eres tú on the show. Donnie, it's been let's go. Donnie, it's been such a pleasure having you join us today. I appreciate your time and your perspective. It's like as unique as it gets.
It means a ton to me to be welcome somewhere that I'm able to say the things I actually think. And I really appreciate it. I don't know how to properly express that, but I think you know what I'm trying to say. Thanks for letting me be me and appreciating that. And, quite the same.
There is nothing better than you being able to just be you and just be real. You know what I mean? I think that authenticity is what rules the world, and particularly in a world in which we're so digitally connected. If you're not authentic, you don't have shit. So
who are you?
So exactly. Tying it straight back to digital identity, you know?
Yeah. Full circle.
Full circle. Hey guys, if this is your first time tuning in, we do this show, if you know, you know, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also host Not Financial Advice, in which we talk about specifically IP is dead, right? IP discussions every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let me do the math on that. That is 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yesterday we had a really great conversation with Sunny from D-Gods. It's funny that you mentioned that, Donnie, because yesterday we were having this conversation about the emotional connectedness, I guess, the emotional connection that holders have to it. And we were talking about how, you know, good or bad, D-Gods is one of those that just immediately imposes feelings upon other people when they see it.
It's huge. The story is so good. I was talking about this to someone the other day. I know we're done, but I'll make this really short. I was talking to somebody who was like ragging on D-Gods or being rude about it or something, saying they don't like Frank, like Frank's a bad person or something. I don't know. There's always like armchair experts about everything. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt, you know, but there's no one who has a story as rich and long-standing as like launching this on this chain, making this thing a coin that gets you this tube for this hairy animal. It's going to that chain. Then these things go to that chain. And then they come back and the other one's going back too. And then they put it on Bitcoin and it's too pixelated. And it's the story is just too good not to think about. And whether people think positively or negatively about it is just an indicator of its strength.
I think that, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't even matter if you're a holder. You have some kind of feelings attached to when you hear or when you see gods. That in and of itself, people dream of having that. So anyway, yeah, I derailed my own outro. Guys, if this is your first time tuning in, we do this show every Wednesday. Thank you. Honestly, you really could have been anywhere else and you chose to be with us. I appreciate that. I will see you guys on the flip side. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, everybody. See ya. All right.